What's up, guys? I'm BTC. Sigma just got his first buffs on the PTR. That didn't take too long. And Moira got nerfed. I was working on a video about Moira's new Fade that I plan to release tomorrow, but while I was making it, Blizzard dropped a new patch on the PTR and changed how the Fade works. We'll get to that in just a second, and I want to talk about how that would have affected the game and what other things they could be doing with the character. But first, Sigma did get his first buff already. Didn't take very long. So the Kinetic Grasp, which is that absorption ability that he has, the cooldown was reduced from 15 seconds down to 13 seconds, so still a very long cooldown. You know, significantly longer than what D.Va has for a similar ability. And then the shield per damage conversion was increased from 0.33 up to 0.4. So not a massive increase in that conversion for that damage. I think more the cooldown will do it. Now, what ends up happening with this ability, and again, it's kind of like D.Va, but the difference is that unlike D.Va, who can just toggle it on and off as much as she wants and only use it for a short amount of time or a longer amount, you get to control it. With Sigma, it's you just activate it and it lasts for that duration and that's it. So you don't have the flexibility that you do with D.Va's defense matrix, and that's why they also added in the extra effect of being able to convert that damage into the shielding. Now, another thing that I do want to point out is the area effect that the Kinetic Grasp has is way, way smaller than what D.Va's defense matrix is, because I often see people trying to use it to block like this large open area, and it just doesn't work. Pretty much the Kinetic Grasp will block what the area is for Sigma, and that's it. So it's not going to be this massive area that stretches out to the sides. It's only Sigma's frame, and that's pretty much all. Probably a much bigger change on the PTR is that they reverted the change they made to Moira's Fade. So you can no longer use it while you're stunned. You can use it before the stun in order to evade it, but you can no longer use it during the stun. So this is basically going right back to what we have on the current live version of the game. I gotta go on a quick little tangent, because one of my pet peeves with the Overwatch player base is the constant misuse of terminology, and Blizzard really doesn't help this all that much. So when they put out the change from Moira, they said, oh, you can use it while stunned. And stuns means things like what McCree and Reinhardt and even being frozen by Mei. Those are stuns. Getting slept by an Ana is not a stun. Getting stuck by Junkrat's trap is not a stun. So the sleep is an incapacitate, and getting trapped is called a root. Those things are not the same as a stun. So Blizzard just takes this broad term of stun and just, applies it to everything. And that's not what it is, right? Like, there's important differences between those abilities. You can't just lump them all together and say that they're stuns, because they're not. Getting back on track, I realize there's a lot of Moira players out there who liked this change and wanted to keep it, and I play a lot of Moira myself, but I think that this change was just way too strong, and it wasn't the thing that the character needed. And I don't think it would have been a good situation for the character or for the game, and it probably would have ended up creating another situation similar to what we had with Reaper after he got his really big lifesteal buff. So let's quickly talk about that situation with Moira, because in the lower bracket, she's a powerful healer with good survivability and decent damage. You don't have to worry too much about the enemy team trying to focus down a Moira player at that rank. Oftentimes, players are just going to use their abilities whenever they want, as opposed to trying to coordinate and synergize in order to take down one enemy. What I mean is that you could have a McCree force the Moira to use the Fade, and then follow up with having a Roadhog catch her when the Fade is down. This is something that higher skill players will often do, but in the lower bracket where voice communication and coordination is low, this sort of thing doesn't happen that much. So what you end up with is a Moira who can go around dealing damage and healing wherever and whenever she wants, and doesn't get a whole lot of pushback. The upper bracket is a different story. You're going to have a lot more coordinated effort, but besides that, in the upper bracket and in the pro scene, supports generally need to have more than just a raw healing and some damage. They need to provide the team with some kind of a utility. This can be in the form of a speed boost, an attack boost, anti-heal, whatever. But raw healing and damage generally isn't good enough. Moira getting an extra amount of survivability doesn't change that. As I'm recording this, the Pro Overwatch League right now is playing some matches, and I've seen a whole bunch of them, and they've been using all of the supports except for Moira. I think I saw Moira get picked one time so far as I'm recording this. But other than that, she just isn't being used, and again, it's because the other characters provide that much-needed utility. So let's talk about this new change then. If it had gone through fully, it would have allowed Moira to be far more aggressive than ever before. It removes a huge amount of counterplay against Moira. Normally, you would have to wait for Moira to use her fade and then try to catch her, but with that change, Moira didn't need to try to be proactive in any way. She could simply wait until she got hit by the stun and then use fade. In fact, while I was playing on the PTR while that change was active, I would deliberately try to bait out the Roadhog hook just so that I could fade out of it. I would rather have him waste that hook on me and know that I can escape than have him use it on one of my teammates or like the Zenyatta who wouldn't be able to. And it just felt really backwards the way that was working. In the upper bracket, you can use strategies like what I just mentioned, but in the lower bracket, this would have been something where any mistakes that the Moira player made would be far less punishing as long as she hadn't wasted her fade. Did you overextend and get stunned? Doesn't matter because you can just fade out of it. Were you out of position and got caught in the Earth Shatter? Doesn't matter, you can just fade out of it. Were you not paying attention to the cooldowns of the enemy Ana, Roadhog, McCree, etc.? It doesn't matter because you can just fade out of it. Yes, players in the upper bracket would make those mistakes as well, but it would be far more common for players in the lower bracket, and it would also encourage bad habits that don't get punished because you could just fade away from it. What likely would have ended up happening is there would have been a small increase in the usage of Moira in the upper bracket, but for the most part you still would have saw all of the other supports again because they provide far better utility, anti-heal, speed boost, immortality field, all that sort of stuff. But the lower bracket, it would have been a much bigger problem because it would have made Moira far stronger than she currently is. Right now, Moira's already in the top 5 most played characters in the lower bracket, and I think if this change had gone through, it probably would have locked her into number 1 or number 2. And again, it feels almost the same as what happened with Reaper, where the change they made to the lifesteal had little to almost no impact whatsoever on the upper bracket and the pro scene, but it made the character far too strong in the lower bracket. I do think that Moira should get some form of extra utility, but that wasn't really what she needed. I don't think Moira needs more survivability, she needs more utility. And I don't think you're going to get that from changing the fade. I think you're going to get more utility by changing how the biotic orbs work. Perhaps they could reduce the total amount that you heal and damage with the orbs in exchange for adding some kind of an extra effect to it. Maybe it could have something similar to what the biotic nade has, where it provides a slight boost when you throw out the healing orb, and it provides an anti-heal when you throw out the damage orb. Now, it doesn't have to be 100% anti-heal, it could be like a 20% or 30%, something smaller, and it just has that little effect as it's dealing damage. You also have that anti-heal that is going to be applied. Maybe it only lasts for 1 second or 2 seconds or something, a really short duration as it's going by and it's damaging them. I think that would go much farther to making Moira a better character in the upper bracket without making her far too powerful in the lower bracket. So there you go, they ended up reverting the change. I know some of you will like it, some of you won't, but let me know what you feel about that change. And also, I'm going to be making another video talking about all of the changes to Brigitte, because that rework is going to have some pretty big impact on how the character is played. Right now, in the pro scene with the 222, they're still running Brigitte, but they're also using the old versions of the characters, the pre-balance change characters. So they're kind of running Brigitte as if she's like a half tank. So they're not quite running goats, they're running like goats light almost. But anyways, also, if you had to add any kind of utility to Moira, where would you put it? Would you put it on the Fade, on the Biotic Orbs, all that sort of stuff? Let me know what your ideas are down below. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to see more, subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss anything. Also, come hang out in my Discord server and my Twitch live stream. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to see what kind of cool VIP rewards you can get, check the links down below. And remember, always blame the controller, because it's never your fault.